Good afternoon, everyone. Hey, you want to hear something absolutely crazy? We are already a month into the 2023 high school football season. That is insane to think about. Week 0 was 4 weeks ago. How is that possible? Alright, now that we've gotten the shock value factor out of the way, let's look at a week that you could honestly call Border War Week. The state of South Carolina in this Border War Week had a really good week. South Carolina went 3-1 against teams from North Carolina and Georgia this week. You had Landrum getting their first win over Polk County since 2016, if I remember correctly. So congratulations to Coach Brent Bridges on snapping the streak there in his first season under the helm at Landrum. I was actually at that game. We'll get a little bit more into it here in a minute. Chesney picked up a big win over Rutherfordton Spindale Central. Knocked them off at home, scored 20 unanswered points there in the second half to pull away and make that a rout. Then you had Gaffney with a big win over Mallard Creek on the road up in the Charlotte area. So just 3 wins there. Spartanburg being the lone loss to an out-of-state team this week. So they hosted a really, really good team. No shame in losing to them. So they lost to Grayson by 2 points. Grayson from Loganville, Georgia. Like the number 9 ranked team in Georgia. And I think they were nationally ranked as well. I'm not sure, but at either rate, Grayson gets a 21-19 win over Spartanburg there. So again, South Carolina goes 3-1 against out-of-state teams this week. It says a lot about the quality of high school football in our area to an extent. But let's dive right on into the border war. Landrum versus Polk County. No love lost between these two. They are absolutely bitter rivals. We're actually forbidden from playing one another because of an incident that happened at a basketball game a few years ago. I think that canceled that rivalry for the better of 4 years, but ever since it's come back, it's gotten right back to the level of hate that they've had between each other before. But in this one, in a rivalry game, you tend to see the stops pulled out early sometimes, and Landrum did just that. They won the coin toss, but they deferred to the second half, so you thought they were going to kick off there to Polk County. Instead, they kick an onside kick, recover it, and then they go right down the field, and Colton Link gets the scoring started with a 3-yard touchdown run, puts Landrum up 7-0 early. Polk County does manage to march right down the field and respond, makes it 7-7. Then Landrum goes right back down the field, goes up 14-7, and really it kind of became all Landrum from there. Polk County did pull it back within a touchdown, and then Colton Link strikes again with the most electric play I may have seen this season, a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. He goes all the way, makes it a 2-score game again. From there, Landrum just kind of pulled away. Kind of the opposite of what happened last year. Last year, Landrum turned the ball over like 4 times in the early going. That ended up being their undoing on the road at Polk County. Well, this time it was Polk County that, despite the fact they played really well, they turned the ball over 4 times in the fourth quarter alone, and that was their undoing. They had 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions, and off of 2 of those turnovers, Landrum ended up turning them into points with a touchdown rush by Colton Link and another one by Braden Mashtair. Braden Mashtair and Colton Link, really the story of the game there for Landrum. They each had 3 rushing touchdowns in the game, and then of course you had the 95-yard kickoff return to add into it on Colton Link's line, so they accounted for most of the offense there, but that's not to say that Landrum didn't have some interest there on offense. When Brent Bridges was hired there at Landrum, one of the things he said he was going to do, he said he wasn't going to change up the offense that much. They were still going to run the ball a lot, as we've been used to seeing out of them, but they were going to try to implement the pass a little bit more. And a lot of people were skeptical as to whether or not running like a shotgun or a spread offense would work there at Landrum, myself included. After last night, I'm thoroughly convinced that it can work so long as you develop the athletes properly, because Landrum's got some dudes on that team besides Colton Link and Braden Mashtair. They've got some guys. And Titus Puri, their quarterback, actually does have a pretty good little arm on him. He had 1 interception last night and had a couple of underthrows, but otherwise, perfect example there in the first quarter. It was 3rd and 20. It was on their second drive of the game when the game tied 7-7. He heaves up a beautiful pass down the far sideline for 35-yard gain, I think, to Reese Dunaway over there. It was just a beautiful pass. It kind of showed just a little snippet of what his arm strength is capable of. He had some other passes in the game. I don't have the exact stats or exact numbers from this one. I'm still waiting on them. But either way, it works. It can work at Landrum. But the thing about Landrum is, you look at the next couple of years, they're probably going to be a little bit down because they've got 22 seniors on the team this year, so they're going to struggle a little bit over the next couple of years probably. Jason Farmer's left them a nice little foundation with the youth program already that Brent Bridges is only going to build on. And I think they are going to develop the talent to where later on down the road, you may see Landrum transition into being a team that can balance their offense out a good little bit. But nevertheless, it showed that Landrum has the potential to work when running a shotgun or a spread kind of offense, or at least they can try to be a little bit more balanced last night. But again, congratulations to Brent Bridges, the Landrum Cardinals, as they pick up the 47-21 win over Polk County. That is the first of our 3 victories in the Border Wars this weekend. Let's talk a little bit about Spartanburg and Grayson. It's hard to deny at this point that Spartanburg has the best defense in our area. Yeah, sure, Gaffney is really good on defense. Burns is nasty on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not saying that those guys aren't absolutely just nasty on defense. But Spartanburg here, over their first couple of games of the season, you just have to look at these scores just to really get an idea on it. See if I can pull up their schedule here for a second. Okay, so Spartanburg, they had a 2-point loss to South Point. They scored on the last play of the game against Dutch Fork to make it look better, but really that was a 1-score game. They win a 1-point affair over Broome last week, a really good Broome team. There's kind of no shame in that end. And then again, the no shame in this 2-point loss they had to Grayson this week. I mean, last week their defense made Jalen McGill and Kamaje Brackett Brannon non-factors. They held them to, I think Clary told us last night that the actual statistics, based on what Spartanburg stat people went back and reviewed from the video, they held Jalen McGill to less than 50 yards. That is impressive. Yeah, the big boogaboo for Spartanburg so far this year is that their offensive line play has really not been that great, and last night that didn't really change for them. Spartanburg really got most of their points on special teams and defense. They had a block punt for a touchdown. Cam Smith, star linebacker for them, blocked that punt. Ends up leading to a touchdown. Cam Smith also scored their only offensive touchdown of the game. He had a 2-yard touchdown run. So Cam Smith, a big reason why the Vikings are even in this one. But Spartanburg, they led 19-6 at the half, and then Grayson just proved to be too good there in the second half. They end up coming all the way back to get the win, 21-19. But the question for Spartanburg going forward here is, can they figure out their offense? Because offensive line is something that really isn't going to be a fix within a year. But there are some little minor adjustments and things they maybe can do here and there to try to get their offense to be a little bit better. Because right now they kind of look just flat, a little bit like Clemson on offense here for the first couple of games. And obviously that's not ideal when you're playing in Region 2-5A with as stacked as those other defenses you face are. Is Spartanburg's defense going to keep them in games? Absolutely. But the question mark's just going to be on how much better they can get their offense as the season progresses. Speaking of offense, Boiling Springs over the last couple of weeks been super impressive. They've won 2 in a row. They go on the road for a big litmus test against Hillcrest. Unfortunately, they fall 21-6, but the game is much closer than that scoreboard indicated. Boiling Springs' defense was phenomenal last night. Calvin Jackson, the senior defensive lineman, had 7 tackles, 2 sacks, an interception, and a pass breakup. JoJo Barrett logged 8 tackles. Cohen Sloan had 6 tackles and a forced fumble. The bugaboo for Boiling Springs, their offense struggled. Coach Reel said that apparently they practiced a little bit poorly this week, and that kind of showed. But even despite that, Lincoln Husky, the quarterback, still had 171 yards and a touchdown on 16 for 38 passing. Really, the difference in the game was just 2 late touchdowns that were scored by Hillcrest wide receiver Avery McFadden that pulled away to make it 21-6. Otherwise, this was a 7-6 game for up until late there in the fourth quarter. So it was a game. Boiling Springs' defense kept them in. That's going to be the story of the season for them. Their defense is nasty as well. They're going to keep them in games. It's just whether or not Boiling Springs can be consistent on offense. And they had plenty of consistency over the last couple of weeks. Looked real good against a really good Chapman team last week. I don't see any reason to think Boiling Springs can't pull out a region win at some point. Maybe even 2. Boiling Springs is definitely possibly not going to be that 5th place team everybody thought they were going to be coming into this season. That's just a testament to how good of a job that Matt Reel is doing there at Boiling Springs here in year number 2. Greer and Burns, not a border rivalry, but a cross-town rivalry. LaDainian Martin returned this week for Greer. We had a lot of question marks thinking he might possibly be out for the season, or at least out until we get deep into the region schedule. He does return last night, played with a knee brace on, but nonetheless, this one was really all Burns. Burns scored on each of their first 7 possessions. They led this game 49-6 late.